I've owned my Tesla Model 3 for a little over a month now, and that time with the car has really given me a better picture of what living with an EV is like. At this point, you're probably wondering, a little over a month in, how does living with an EV measure up? Well, pretty great actually. So here are 5 common myths about owning a Tesla debunked from a new Tesla owner. Myth number 1, you can't take a Tesla on long road trips. This is the number one concern from family members, friends, and everyone around me when I told them I was looking at getting a Tesla. And after driving this car a solid 3,000 to 4,000 miles in the past month, I can tell you that it is absolutely not true. Tesla's supercharging network is the gold standard of EVs. For over 10 years, they've been building this network out not only nationally, but globally. Every trip I've taken, whether it's short or a little bit longer distance, or just being in the car like all day running errands, I've never had to worry about charging. Combine that with the fact that my Tesla Model 3 is the long-range version, which if you're looking at getting one, by the way, I'd highly recommend looking at over the standard range model, and I never have really had to think about it. Superchargers are so easy to use. All you do is just back in, get out of your car, hook it up, and boom, you're charging, you're done. You don't even have to think about like a kiosk with payment. It's all handled remotely and automatically through the Tesla app, and you're billed automatically through your payment information on file. In fact, Tesla's supercharging network is so solid that they've been opening up their supercharger stations to other EV brands, with brands like Ford and Rivian and pretty much every other main one in the market adopting Tesla's new open source NACS standard connector. So by 2025, pretty much every car you see on the road that's an EV is probably going to have the Tesla Charge connector and have access to Tesla's supercharging network. Stopping off on road trips at the Tesla Supercharger network has been handled automatically through my in-car navigation, and it's actually been a much more pleasant experience. I do like how Tesla places their superchargers next to local small businesses and places of interest that you never really would have thought about stopping otherwise. Don't get me wrong, there are still remote areas where you do kind of have to think about the fact that there's not probably a supercharger too close nearby, but there's such a wide variety of charging options and adapters for Teslas, including CCS, which most cars now include support for, or if you have an older Model 3 like me, Tesla is coming out with a new retrofit for the Charger ECU system, which will allow you to use CCS chargers with an adapter. So when you combine all that and also the common J1772 plug and all the charging stations, which sometimes are free and complimentary, charging with a Tesla on road trips is not a problem. And the enhanced autopilot feature that my car has really makes it one of my favorite cars to take for road trips of all time. Oftentimes, I find myself way less fatigued when I arrive at my destination using autopilot because it takes care of most of it for me while I'm keeping check on things. Myth number 2, the batteries in Teslas needs to get replaced often and it's always expensive. When you start thinking about buying an EV, usually this is your first concern. But battery technology has come a long way in the past 15 years. Tesla specifically has done a pretty good job of making sure that their batteries age fairly evenly. They're rated for about 200,000 to 300,000 miles on average, and most of the degradation that you see with Teslas happens in the first year. After that, things usually tend to level off, and it's pretty steady from there. I did buy my Model 3 used from Tesla specifically, and the previous owner took very good care of the battery. My degradation is only at about 95%, so I've lost about 10 to 15 miles of range over the 6 years this car has been on the road. Newer Tesla batteries also come with a little bit of a bigger capacity than advertised, so as it degrades, you keep the same range. There are other factors that do affect this degradation, like how fast you drive the car and how often you drive it over 65 miles per hour, but as long as you're not like absolutely ragging the crap out of this car, you should be fine. Myth number 3, charging a Tesla is way more inconvenient than driving a gas car. This one is a very big concern a lot of people have. Let's face it, it is nice to be able to stop off on the highway at pretty much any gas station anywhere and have your car filled up within 5 minutes and back on the road. But a lot of this paranoia that surrounds having to stop and charge your Tesla is way overblown. But how long do you usually have to spend at a supercharger? Not that long, actually. Most of my average stops have been about 10 to 15 minutes. The longest one I've had is about 30 minutes, which still is not that bad. I mean, usually around the time I need to stop at these superchargers, it's kind of the perfect timing for me to get out, stretch my legs a bit, and see some of those aforementioned local spots I talked about near the superchargers. I feel like these stops need to be longer. I've been pushing the charging limit up on my Tesla at these supercharger stops a lot to like 100%, so it'll take longer for me to sit and enjoy my coffee and go check out the spots around. And usually if you're getting out, walking around, or stopping for food on a trip, I guarantee you're probably spending about as long, if not way longer, than it would take if you're in a gas car. there are a couple factors that affect the speed of charging your Tesla too. If you navigate to a supercharger, the car automatically starts preconditioning the vehicle for faster supercharging, which basically means it heats up your battery so your charge time will be less than usual. Myth number 4, electric cars are gonna die in traffic and cause brownouts. Okay, look, I've heard this one a lot and totally understand that's a valid concern. But with all of these systems built into EVs, like the navigation system that does automatic routing to supercharging when you need it, and having a home charger, range anxiety is not nearly as big of a problem as it used to be, especially if it's a Tesla. And when it comes to the whole brownouts, power grid infrastructure concern, most EV owners, including me, have their Teslas and EVs set to charge automatically between non-peak hours, which energy is actually cheaper. So part of the incentives that power companies offer you with driving an EV has to do with taking the load off of the power grid during off-peak hours. And power consumption with EVs when you're at idle is way less than when you're actually driving. So your electric car dying in traffic is probably about as valid a concern as your gas car running out of gas in traffic. And finally, myth number 5, Teslas are insanely expensive. The prices of used Teslas and electric vehicles in general has gone down drastically in the past couple months. A lot of people are seeing this as an omen or a bad thing, but I'm not. I paid just $24,900 US for my Model 3, which, according to most of my friends I've talked to that have internal combustion engine vehicles, is way cheaper than they paid for theirs. Okay, I've actually heard about this and didn't realize it until I bought my Tesla, but EVs are actually some of the cheapest cars to own. I was talking with a Tesla employee in the store, and most new Tesla owners only see an average increase of about $25 to $30 per month to charge their EV at home, which is ridiculous. Also, supercharging is always way cheaper than gas. The most expensive bill I've had at a supercharger, which was charging up from about 20% to 100% on a road trip, was about $13. Coming from a Ford Transit Connect, a long wheelbase, which tended to guzzle gas, but was still pretty efficient for what it was, my gas bill at its best was about $35 to $40. So 40 bucks, a little over 10 bucks. Take your pick. Also, maintenance on a Tesla is pretty much non-existent. When you don't have to worry about things like oil and coolant and all these other fluids in your car, things become much cheaper. The main concern you're gonna have with maintenance on your Tesla is the tires. I've got a set of Michelins on my Model 3, and if you tally up all 4 tires with an alignment, you're probably gonna end up around like $800 to $900. But if you have something like a truck or a van, which I had to pay a pretty similar amount on to get nice tires for, the odds are it's not gonna be that much different. But because Teslas are often way faster on average than gas vehicles because of the torque of the electric motors, if you drive like a maniac, you're gonna pay for it. It's actually funny because this is a very similar problem to higher-end sports cars. Maybe don't go down I-85 like you're in the Daytona 500. All right, guys, so those were a few common myths of owning a Tesla that I've managed to debunk in the first month that I've owned it. If you're thinking about buying an EV, or if you have any questions or concerns about EV ownership, leave a comment down below and let's have a chat about it. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely leave a like down below and let me know. And if you want to hear more from me, definitely consider hitting that big red subscribe button and bell notification icon next to it so you can always be in the know when I upload new videos. And as always, see you in the next one.